are you okay? And he doesn't even look at me. He's like looking off and he goes, yeah, I just picked up a head off of I-95 from an accident. And I went, and I'd just taken a bite out of a blueberry muffin. And I went, and it hits the back of my throat and my throat closes and I'm going, and a lady over here, she grabs my arms and she pulls them over my head. I had somebody else rubbing my back. I had somebody else trying to go and get me water. And this guy across from me, a first responder,
Right.
was so removed that he never noticed. He never saw anything.
Hello, my friend. Welcome to Bold Conscious Connections. So this channel is dedicated to exploring the journeys of visionary leaders, entrepreneurs, who really dare to follow their dreams, their passions, and create really impactful businesses. So if you're looking to become an entrepreneur or otherwise seeking inspiration to elevate your career, well, you're in the right place, my friend. So on this channel, what I do is we delve into strategies, mindsets, stories behind the success of those that have done this before, like I have. I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Vicky Townsend to our show today. She's an advocate for transforming divorce and family support landscape in this country, particularly for first responders and military personnel. And all the great work she's doing, we'll talk about in a minute. First of all, Vicky, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be doing this. I feel like I'm with a movie star.
All right, we'll pick up that later on. So I usually ask this question of all my guests, Vicky, in general. You have such a plethora of accomplishments in your career and all the amazing work you do. But I'd just like to ask who Vicky is.
Oh, gosh. Well, first and foremost, I am a mother to two really wonderful children. They are my purpose, despite the fact that they are on their own, and I'm a grandmother now.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm one of those obnoxious grandmothers, so don't get me started. The phone will come out. But ultimately, I believe that I'm here to support families that are going through something really challenging and difficult in a landscape that nobody understands with intention. And I want to help them get through it because I've been there, I've made those mistakes, and I want to, as a former rescuer myself in my personal life, I've taken that need to do that and put it into a career that changes lives.
Well, that would have been my second question. So what are you able to share that personal experience, that defining moment that made you make this into a mission?
Oh gosh, absolutely. I spent over $100,000 on my divorce. I mean, and if I knew then what I know now, I'd be about $95,000 richer. And that's not a joke. And, I'm not a dumb girl. I'm a pretty smart girl. I may not, don't ask me to do your neurosurgery, right? But I'm a pretty smart girl. I thought I could figure things out. And when you get into this system, it's designed for their success, not your success. When I say their success, I'm like all the people that surround you in that process. They make the money. They don't care. Some of them do. I do know some really wonderful people in this profession, but for the most part, they're there for their own success, and your success is secondary. And,
are you referring to lawyers, or are you talking about the?
Yeah, lawyers. Mostly lawyers. Yeah, mostly lawyers. It is a system that is designed by them that you have to pay a lot of money to get you out of, and that it's labyrinthine by design. And, it's funny, I use when I'm talking and speaking in the first responder space where I speak a lot, I often use the words, would you hire me to put out a huge house fire? Because all I would have to do is open the wrong door and oxygen goes in there and the house blows up, right? Why is that? Because I'm not trained to do that. They are trained to do that. They are not trained. Nobody is trained to get you through this system. And, it's a system that counts on your ignorance, and it counts on you being unprepared and emotionally shattered and scattered. So that's how it makes its money. So I try and get all of that out of the way so that we can get you organized, prepared, mentally as well, and emotionally as well as financially prepared to get you through it. and get you to the other side in one piece.
So you're not necessarily focused on women?
No,
Okay.
no. As a matter of fact, right now, because I work so much with first responders, and we also are moving into the medical emergency space because they also face higher divorce rates.
So you've built an entire ecosystem on divorce support, right? Is that fair to say? But is there a moment when you realize that there's one solution that wouldn't be enough? And then what led to focus on first responders to begin with?
Well, so my story was that I was doing this and my targets were the Googles and the Oracles and, the Walmarts and things like that. And I'm from Fort Lauderdale, and I had a friend who had a friend that's a chaplain for some of the fire departments down there.
Mm-hmm.
And so she connected me because he had somebody that was going through, a divorce, and they, a chaplain knows how to keep marriages to try to keep marriages together, but they don't understand the process either.
Sure.
So I met with several firefighters, and the first one that I met, I was at a coffee shop on Las Olas. It was beautiful,
Right.
surrounded by flowers. And this guy sits down, and he's just got this blank affect to his face. And he's sitting there, and I finally looked at him, and I know that I don't ask people, how are you doing? Because I always
Sure.
feel guilty because I know they're not, if you're coming to see me, things are not good.
Right.
And so I said, are you okay? He doesn't even look at me. He's like looking off, and he goes, yeah, I just picked up a head off of I-95 from an accident. And I went, and I'd just taken a bite out of a blueberry muffin. And I went, and it hits the back of my throat, and my throat closes, and I'm going, and a lady over here, she grabs my arms and she pulls them over my head. I had somebody else rubbing my back. I had somebody else trying to go and get me water. And this guy across from me, a first responder,
Right.
was so removed that he never noticed. He never saw anything. And then the next day, I met a guy who had just pulled a 3-year-old out of the bottom of a hot tub. And as a taxpayer, I was embarrassed that I didn't understand what they did and how much they sacrificed for us. And what I do know is that careers that involve a lot of stress, a lot of exposure to trauma, even shift work, puts them at higher risk for divorce. And these guys are in all of that. That the statistics that a chaplain shared with me was that you and I will experience 3 to 5 traumatic events in our lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
They experience that in a 24-hour shift.
That's when we talked about this. To me, it was mind-boggling.
It's what they do every day.
3 to 5 in a lifetime versus 3 to 5 in 24 hours.
24 hours.
Oh my God, crazy.
Yeah, and you can't look at that and not understand, like the guy with the head on I-95. How does he go home and be daddy? How does he go home and go, hey, honey, let's go have date night?
Right.
The answer is he doesn't. He doesn't without a lot of therapy and a lot of work. And it impacts their marriages and their relationships. I talk a lot about divorce, but I also work with couples that did not take the steps to get actually married legally. So they're living together. They have families together. They have children together. They have assets together. They still face a lot of the same challenges that a couple that went through that process does. So we handle both of those for them with mission of, keeping their resources in their own bank accounts, helping them so that they can move forward with their lives, find their purpose, find some joy and happiness in the next chapter of their life.
So when you were telling me the muffin story, and again, he's a first responder. Of course, he's first responder for a fire department, right? Sounds like, or was it fire? But here you were in crisis in the moment, and then he didn't even...
He couldn't. I think he was so present in remembering that moment that he was just... I pictured him when he gets home, right? What is it like in his actual home? And the answer is that it probably doesn't connect when he's at home as much as he could, or you and I could, when, we get home from work.
So it's funny. My question was going to be, first responders do thrive under crisis pressure, right? And I'm talking about just pressure. It's crisis pressure. How does that same strength then become their challenge in relationships?
Well, because I don't think that they're the same thing, right?
Because it's not crisis?
Because it's just not, handling a crisis, running into a building that's on fire is far different than making dinner or changing diapers, right? cleaning the pool, fixing
or having a fight with your spouse. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's just different. Those two are not, I don't think that they're related. What I think is related is that at some point, and I say there's some women that are in this field, they have much higher divorce rates, by the way. These guys go home and, hey, honey, how was your day? Is not the right question. Right? It's just not the right question. It impacts their relationships. And so they need a tremendous amount of support. And we as taxpayers, I'm so grateful to be on your podcast today to kind of share these stories, because I've become mama bear on these stories. I really have gotten in fights on LinkedIn with people on how much, what these people sacrifice. But I am embarrassed to say that I didn't know. If I didn't know, I'm sure that 90% of the rest of the community doesn't know either. So I feel that we ask them for so much that we need to help them in all areas of their personal life, because what they do for us impacts their personal life.
Well, clearly. So you're basically answering my next question, which was what's the biggest misconception about first responder marriages that even they don't see?
Well, I think that, I don't want to make everybody think that every marriage, falls into divorce, because that's not true. Because when they're good, they're great. A first responder marriage that is, I can't tell you how many that I've met that have been, married for 30, 35, 40 years, and it's beautiful. They have managed somehow to be able to connect through that crisis and trauma.
I see.
It's just that a lot of them can't make that jump. They can't make that. So they do have a higher divorce rate than average by a substantial amount. And hopefully now people can understand the sacrifice that happens in their personal life to keep us safe. To be able to pick up, my mother fell in her house. I had to have I called 911, and these guys came and picked up my mom and took her to the hospital. We want those people to be able to perform for us. So I feel like we as taxpayers need to start to realize what they sacrifice to be able to do that.
So this is through government funded programs? You keep saying taxpayers as us, but what can we do?
I'd like to talk about maybe what we do to support them first, and then we'll talk about how it's funded.
Yeah.
So my company is Divorce Right. I have a program called Fairwell, FAIRWELL.
Right.
And that is, divorce coaching, case management. We even provide first responders with a 25% discount on mediation services if that's an option.
If that's what they need.
It's not always an option, but it can be. It easily can be in most cases. So we try and get them. Also, we want them to be able to still effectively co-parent their children together and still have some sort of a relationship with their former spouse. So that was kind of where we started. As a matter of fact, it was the chaplains that said, they kept saying to me, Vicky, this is great. We understand that we need this. We're not happy that we need this, but we understand we need this. But do you do anything to help us keep their marriage together? And at first I was like, well, I'm here for the car crash. I'm not really here for the driving lesson. But the more I heard it, the more I began to say, I need to have a solution for these people. And so we've now partnered and created our own EAP, which is an employee assistance program. We call it Bridgewell. We bring in literal telehealth all the way up to crisis intervention counseling for those horrific traumatic events like the accident on I-95, all the way down to just resources for mental health therapy, individual therapy, online therapy. So we partnered with a company called Oasis Mental Health Care. We've partnered with a marriage support program. It's a wonderful program. It's called Our Relationship. It is currently being used by the Department of Defense, because military also has a very high divorce rate. Another sacrifice that taxpayers don't seem to, we don't understand because it's not in our face.
Right.
This program has the same exact success rate as in-person marriage counseling.
Wow.
And it's something that can be done from the comfort of your home and at about 1/6 the price, maybe even less. So I partnered with them. And then we've also partnered with a company called Peace at Home Parenting. that offer parenting solutions, because when you're going through a crisis at home with your marriage or your relationship, and there are children involved, the children can have a higher risk of teen pregnancy, drug use, alcohol abuse, even incarceration and teen pregnancy. So there are things that happen at home that impact the children. So we've partnered with Peace at Home Parenting, and they have a library of resources, about 1,800 videos from advanced degrees to experts like psychologists, psychiatrists, behavioral experts, developmental experts that can help you help your child get through some really traumatic and difficult transitions in their lives. So we've created this EAP that is a one-stop solution for first responders. We've also, like I said, gone into the medical community, because emergency room, trauma centers, urgent care centers, they all still face those same risks of divorce because of their career. So we're excited to be able to bring this. And you asked about funding. We get grants, mental health grants for them. We try and go through the unions now, which is really interesting because first responders are very, very, very distrustful of HR EAP plans because they're afraid it's going to be used against them. So if we go through their union or their benevolent association, it works out better. And sometimes HR comes in. We're willing to and agile enough to be able to make it however it needs to work. But most importantly, our first thought is, how are we going to impact this community?
It's funny. I was thinking about this last night as I was preparing. What could I ask you that would be, because I was taken by the stories you told me the other day. And I was saying, well, first of all, this is more about suicide and other things that we've heard about. People don't reach out because even though they may not know, they don't even recognize they're in a crisis, or their relationships are basically, suffering, etc. So something has to trigger, something has to instigate the first step, right? So how do you could have all the funding and all the grants and all the programs ready, and then you created all these organizations that didn't even exist before, which is amazing, very bold of you. But somebody has to be able to access those and say, okay, I'm going to take that step. Who takes that step? The spouse suffering or the first responder directly?
Well, our program is offered through the first responder. It is accessible to their spouse, but it has to be shared with their spouse, just like, I guess, any other benefit, any other employee benefits.
So can you give us an example? Let's say it's a fire department of particular
1,000 people.
1,000 people. Yeah. Your EAP program they're associated with that. So there is knowledge that exists for the employer, if you will, to share with.
Yeah. We have an app. It's an app. We do all sorts of things to encourage them to download it, because they can literally access almost any of us on your phone just by, hey, I have some questions for you. Particularly the mental health component, that's 24/7. You can talk to somebody 24/7. Like our programs, the divorce program, our relationship program, and the parenting, if you need somebody, those are your typical, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. type of access hours. We always have an onboarding meeting. Typically it's through, like the one we have next week with one of the fire departments, is we have a presentation during their union meeting. And we talk to them about, this is what's available to you. One of the things that you talked about, the mental health, and this is already a really difficult conversation, but divorce is the number one reason for suicides amongst police officers. Closely behind is finances. And you cannot unlink those two. They are just inextricably linked forever and ever. Amen.
Right.
And getting them the help. So we feel that our marriage enrichment and support program can help save marriages. And by the way, everybody should go through it. The statistic behind marriage counseling is that 50% of marriages end up in divorce that go through counseling within a couple of years, right? And I don't know that I have direct data on this, but my opinion on why those statistics are so high is that they waited too late. They waited too late to get the help that they need. Typically, it happens after somebody says, I want a divorce, right? And that's typically the woman, by the way. And she has tried, statistics are that she tries and she tries and she tries until she's tired of trying and she's done. So trying to get her back is really a challenge. And that's why counseling after somebody has said they want a divorce very rarely works. It's a coin toss. So what we want to encourage them to do in our onboarding is, please do this. please do this now so that you can have we don't want you to access the divorce program that you have.
Right.
And by the way, we are not advocates for divorce. We're just advocates for it to be done right so that people can have some resources left when it's over.
Yeah.
We're not here to say, get a divorce. We're here to say, if you need to have it done, let us show you how to run into that house that's on fire and not blow it up.
We talk about EAP. I used one when I had a crisis of trauma of my own, like 35 years ago or something. And you mentioned the potential stigma that may be attached to it in a corporate environment. And you began by saying, you had Walmarts and other companies that you still maybe are pursuing. I suppose yours is a for-profit business, right?
Yes, we are.
So are you giving up on corporate employees? Or are you potentially, with your new EAP, Bridgewell, you're going to be potentially marketing to them as well?
We are going, so where we shine and where we really have found our niche is in high stress and high trauma career paths. So going into the emergency departments at hospitals, the trauma centers, the urgent care centers, their risk factor for divorce, for trauma, shift work and stress is very, very high. So that's a great fit for us. Another one that we're considering is the airlines, particularly those that are on flight crews. They also have a higher risk for divorce. And all of this, by the way, impacts their productivity. The statistics on the productivity for somebody going through a divorce is that they lose about 40% of their productivity for 3 to 5 years on average.
Wow.
It's not a joke. This is a very, very stressful time. One of the things that's happened since COVID in particular is that, the timelines, one of the things that I remember when I was in Florida, in Fort Lauderdale, is that they had, Florida has I forget, 1,000 people moving into it a day. I don't know if that's still the number, but back then it was, right? But they weren't increasing the number of family law judges. And even when one was retiring, they weren't necessarily replacing that person.
Right.
So you have a bigger population, which has a 50% divorce rate, right? That's just the statistic.
Sure.
It's actually 47. But either way, not being able to keep up with your population growth means that system that still has the same minutes in every day that your watch has and my watch has takes a lot longer. So the average divorce down in South Florida can be a couple of years. That's why we love mediation, because we can bypass that system, keep them out of that. And our average mediation is about 3.5 months and less than $5,000 start to finish, done.
Wow.
So in a country where the average divorce is, 25 grand, and especially for these guys that are not Jeff Bezos, they're not Elon Musk's, they're spending on these process, and it can deplete their entire life savings, which takes me back to the statistics with police officers.
Wow.
Right?
I know.
We've got to do my goal in my life. And I don't know how much time I have left. And if anybody that's listening to this podcast wants to join us, we want to change a really crappy process that ending a marriage should not cost you your entire life savings.
Yep.
And I'm going to die on that hill. I'm just going to die on that hill.
Right.
It's just crazy. It's crazy to me.
So then what's one moment in that journey that you just talked about that changed the way you see relationships, divorce, resilience? Pick a word that describes what is meant to be, this beautiful relationship and my, life.
I think being empowered to take control of a situation, this court system makes you think that the worst thing that's ever happened to this industry is that the brand of the industry is you better lawyer up. You better hire a shark. You better hire a bulldog. You got to hire a barracuda or a tiger or something else that eats people, right? And you don't. You don't have to go that way. But that's the brand. And guess who started that brand, by the way? Family law attorneys.
Okay, yeah, right? Of course.
So many people don't understand that if they don't have a lot of assets, and particularly without children, they can DIY this thing. There are companies out there that can help them with the paperwork for, just a few $100s. Mediation is very, gets people to a point where they can agree on what they don't agree with, gets them to their goals. Your goals may be here, my goals may be here, and somehow we're going to end up here. Neither one of us are going to be happy. But at the end of the day, it's what's reasonable and what's right. And in the mediation session, you get a part of it. You can you're in control of what happens to your assets and your children, and not somebody, not some judge that doesn't know you or, your situation, doesn't know your children. And so, I think that it's, your best solution is to figure this out as adults yourself.
So Vicky, you've created an organization that didn't exist before, as I said earlier, right? So what's been your boldest, most this might fail moment as an entrepreneur?
Every day. I sit there, when I started this business going after, the Walmarts and the Disneys and the this and the that, I thought it was going to be a slam dunk because, 40% loss of productivity. What I didn't know is that they would be uncomfortable talking about divorce and they would feel that it's none of their business. And also there is a very big religious connotation to this process, right?
Oh, okay.
I'll say it's not my business. Nobody make eye contact, and maybe it'll just go away. The fact that she's in the bathroom crying her eyes out every day from 1 o'clock till 4 o'clock, they don't recognize that as lost productivity. And if you just get your employee settled with a plan, because they are spinning. Every part of their life is just spinning, and getting them to settle down and give them a plan so that they can go, okay, I can do this is so important. But with that said, because of the stigma behind divorce, because of the religious connotations behind divorce, and because of it's none of my business behind divorce, I was knocking on the wrong doors. And not that, I got business, but it was really hard until I sat down with those gentlemen that had gone through traumas that I never in my life could imagine a human being surviving. And then to find out that they do that every day. I worked with a first responder 2 weeks ago from Monday, who had pulled a crushed baby out of a car. He was 50 years old. He says, Vicky, I don't know how much longer I can do this. And I sat there in my heart and I said, I get you. I understand this. I don't know. I'm grateful that you've been doing it for the last 25 years. Thank you for doing this. But they get to the point, and I'm hoping that this conversation that we're having today, opens the eyes to some of your viewers and your listeners that didn't understand what these people do. They're heroes.
Yes.
They are literal heroes, and at a cost to their own mental health.
Yes, I got the goosebumps here, man.
Yeah. So we're taking a really challenging time and trying to make it better for them, whether that's to improve their marriage, to improve their mental health, to help them with parenting their children, or to end their marriage or their relationship with some grace and dignity and with the resources they need to move on. Because one other thing I will tell you is that you could walk into any fire station in your communities and you'll see guys in their 30s, 40s, and 50s on their third and fourth marriages. Yep. So we need to support them. We need to help them. I know everybody's talking about, I pay too much taxes, but you don't for these people. I don't know how much I'd have to pay you to pick up a head off of I-95. I don't think I could possibly do it. Not ever. Not for $1 million.
Yeah.
Couldn't.
You said that.
Yeah.
So if you could rewrite the rule book for divorce and family support of these people, what's the first rule that you throw out?
Oh, gosh. Well, I would throw out the brand that you have to hire a shark or a bulldog. That's not a rule.
That's sort of the premise.
It's what everybody thinks to be the way to go without understanding that there's actually 5 ways to divorce in this country. And litigation, to me, is the worst and the choice of very last resort.
And what are the 3 in between? Mediation? Is that what you mean?
There's DIY.
DIY, yeah.
Mediation. Arbitration, which is where you get a private judge to come in and make some decisions for you. It's legally binding, so you got to know who you're working with.
Yeah.
The other one is collaborative. This is an interesting, somewhat new-ish. It's been around probably about 15, 20 years now, where, let's say you and I are married. I need representation. You need representation because maybe we have some businesses that we've started together, or maybe we have some assets that have to be divided. Or maybe there's some issues with children or whatever. So I have representation, you have representation, but everything is done in the same room. And typically there is a neutral financial person that's involved. and a neutral mental health person that's involved to kind of keep the temperature down in the room.
Mhm.
This is a great option. It also keeps all of your business out of public record. It's a great choice for, people that are celebrities, people that are, in the government, that people that, divorce is public record, right? When you go through the court system.
Of course. Yeah.
So this keeps that out of that. And yet you have legal representation to make sure all of your rights and everything is done correctly and, yada, yada, blah, blah, blah. So the collaborative process is one of my favorites for families. It was created, I believe, by a Buddhist. And the goal of that process is to keep everybody being able to speak to each other so that you don't have to run when you're at the grocery store and you're in the produce department and your ex walks in. You don't have to run to the dairy department. You can actually say hello to each other and to have a meaningful relationship. And then the last choice is
litigation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Litigation that's a meat grinder. And it's not only a meat grinder, but it's a money suck.
Been there, done that, Vicky.
Yeah, same. Yeah, $100,000 later. I'm trying to
change. Much bigger. My numbers are bigger.
Crazy. Listen, I have somebody that's on their second million. It's crazy. Yeah. To end a relationship, it's just, to me, this is nuts.
Okay, so let's come to you. What's something people assume about you, Vicky, as a leader that wouldn't be furthest from the truth?
Oh gosh, I don't know the image about me.
Well, I mean, they start talking to you, so there is.
Oh, I think that they know that I know what I'm talking about, but I don't want them to think that I'm a lawyer because I'm not.
Sure, of course.
I'm here to find them the right pieces, the right puzzle pieces. So I never want them to think that I am a lawyer.
So do they think that you're a lawyer or something like that?
Yeah, a lot of people do.
And so what's the one thing you want people to remember about your work? Not just what you built, but why you built it.
Oh, I want to change lives. I want to give people a fresh start. And with the resources in their own bank account that doesn't end up enriching somebody else. Mm-hmm. And I want to support those that pour their lives and their souls, both physically and mentally, into our security and our safety. People don't think about what they do.
Well, it's funny. I've had two situations in the last 4 years where the fire department had to come in. One was a false alarm and one was something else. Of course, invariably 1 or 2 in the morning. I just remember the second time being very thankful that they were there when I wanted them because I was sick. And if they hadn't been there, I wouldn't have been able to, do anything to get the door or whatever. And then whatever the crisis might have been. But anyway, I think you've certainly enlightened me, if you will, about this.
Ultimately, I hope to open everybody's eyes to understanding that these are people that run into buildings when you're running out.
Yeah.
We can look at California. We can look at here where I am in Asheville, North Carolina. My daughter's friend was pulled out of a car as it was about to float away down a river by a firefighter here. Now South Carolina is on fire.
Yeah.
These people we take for granted.
Yes, for sure.
We take for granted. So that is my mission, is to, take a bad time in their life and make it just a little bit better so that they can move on and with some resources to move on to the next part of their life. And also help them with their mental stability around. A divorce is considered one of the top 2 life stressors
absolutely
ever, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Let's help them through that.
I lost years in that, whether it's productivity, as you just said, or the anxiety, the stress levels, and the blood pressure, all these things that go with all that, right? Yep. So it's crazy.
Absolutely.
Okay. So since my audience, as I told you, are in their, whatever, 40s, 50s, et cetera, perhaps, who are losing kind of connection with their purpose, Vicky. So 2 questions around that. Beyond the financial aspects, which of course are overriding for everybody or overpowering, what personal and professional considerations should be top of mind for them, high achievers, let's call them, to venture into entrepreneurship?
Well, for me, I've created businesses that don't exist.
Yes, of course.
Right. Even my business before this one was called the National Association of Divorce Professionals. We kind of started, a trend to network and create a community of people.
Yes.
They want to help people not take the money from them, right? Help them through the process in a kinder, gentler way. So one of my strengths and strengths finders, actually, if I've ever done that, is that I can put seemingly disparate pieces of a puzzle together which is really what I've done here with this EAP. I have created an overall product that may not be right for Walmart. It may not be right for Google, but I'll be damned if it isn't absolutely pitch perfect for our first responders, for our emergency room and trauma centers, and potentially for airline employees.
For employees, yeah.
So, I think that it's, who do you want to serve? What makes your heart sing? Because I will tell you that every time I hear from some of these guys, and it's, Vicky, thank you for keeping me grounded. Thank you for being there with me. Thank you for helping me figure this out. Thank you for everything that you've done. Blah. I mean, they come a lot in waves, particularly at Christmas was really wonderful, which could be a really tough time. But I heard from so many saying thank you. The thank yous are far greater for me than the financial rewards. The financial reward's nice, right? It keeps the lights on. It keeps, it keeps my computer working. But ultimately, to know that I'm changing lives, it's impacting. So I think that for your audience, what do they want to do that's like that?
That's right.
Where can they make a difference? And like, I will tell you, I never go to work a day in my life.
Yes.
I don't.
So you're answering my second question related to that, which was like, how do others cultivate the mindset of that service? And after leaving a high level role, let's say in corporate America or whoever, right, wherever they are, or any corporate role, it requires a shift in the mindset that you're actually solving a problem that's serious, that you can, that only you've been gifted to solve.
I'll give you an example, which is actually one of my divorce coaches. She's wonderful. She was very high flying. She is in the C-suite with Deloitte in one of their divisions. She's wanted to retire. They drag her back in. Wanted to retire. They've dragged her back in. She's been dragged back in. But in the meantime, she's bought a franchise for a pet daycare center. And she's literally having a building built because she loves taking care of dogs. Like I do too. That's how she and I kind of connect. We connect over that too. She's starting her business. I mean, she's in her 50s for sure. She's gone from this high pressure Deloitte high level COO of one of their divisions to starting her own pet business because she loves dogs.
That's right.
She'll never go to work a day in her life. She's so excited she's agreed to do, like I said, they dragged her back in. She agreed to do it for a year and a half, which is what it's going to take to build this building, get all the permits, get all the design, blah, 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 blah. And when she retires, she will have a pet sitting business that she's going to start in Georgia.
You know what some of my listeners might be saying? Oh yeah, she could do that because she has pots of money and blah, blah, blah. And then you could go pursue a hobby or a passion of yours. What would you say to that?
Yeah, they're right. I mean, you may have to borrow money. You may have to find grants out there. You may have to start, at a coaching level, but, and something that doesn't require, a lot of cash to start. There's tons of stuff on the internet that you can do these days. But yeah, starting something like that takes money. But I think that the point of that was that she found her purpose.
That's the thing. So it doesn't matter. Do a side hustle of your passion if you like. Go ahead. But don't work a day in your life. That's what I love. Do not work a day in your life.
And I don't. And as hard as, by the way, what I do is really hard. I mean, we have, just FYI, the family law attorneys have the highest suicide rate in that profession, in the legal profession. So it is because it is a horrible, horrible place.
That's right.
It is a horrible, stew to swim in. And I don't know really where I was going with that, but other than to say, find something that brings you joy.
I think you said if it lights you up, or then
this obviously lights me up.
You said that.
What I was saying is that I hear these. I mean, when I tell you horror stories, like horror stories. So we have vicarious trauma, but if I can get them to the end of all of that better than they would have if they had either gone through the traditional legal system, or I can hold their hand. That's another thing that we do. Just because mediation isn't a choice for them, we'll help them interview and develop a team. We help them with strategy. We help them develop timelines. We help them get organized, because there's two very expensive parts of a divorce: being uneducated and being unprepared. We get them ready for both of those. I mean, even that is as toxic as that stew is to swim in, and it is, we can make it a little better.
Yeah.
Never going to be perfect. My industry sucks. My industry sucks. So, let's just put that right there. But if you make a difference, to me, that's put your head on the pillow at night and sleep like a baby.
Awesome. Okay. So before I get to rapid fire, one last sort of question is, entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart, right?
It's not.
You've already been bold. You've done lots of things that didn't exist before you created businesses. Conscious, the Bold Conscious is my podcast, Bold Conscious Connections. Do you have practices that keep you grounded daily or otherwise that make you feel I'm connected?
Not anything that is formalized, but I have and it's part of my presentation, which is all of these text messages that I receive. And it's in my presentation, they go and they just pop up all over the thing. I watch that as often as I possibly can because that keeps me grounded. That keeps me going. That fills my cup, right? That is what does it for me. It's you've changed my life for the better. You've changed my life for good. I feel like I'm in the wicked, the wicked.
But that's externally coming into you. What about something internal that you don't have to have a formal practice, but just whatever that feels like.
It's not. I mean, that's, even though that's an external, it's there because of the work that I do and reminds me of why I get up every day.
Okay. Awesome.
Because that to me is honestly a far bigger dividend than the checks.
Got it.
On truth. They are really meaningful. Really, really meaningful.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
All right. So some of these questions, they'll go pretty fast, but if they sound repetitive, I'll probably try to skip them.
Okay.
You don't have to do one-word answers. You could just,
okay.
But we'll just go rapid. Okay.
I'll give it my best shot.
Yes. Okay. Prevention or intervention?
Oh, prevention in my case.
Okay. One thought leader in resilience who shaped your approach, if any.
Oh, gosh. Simon Sinek and his Why TED Talk has been a tremendous influence on me. And Daniel Pink, too, for thinking outside of the box.
Mm-hmm. One belief about relationships you've completely changed over time.
Oh, boy. That a marriage certificate is not what makes your marriage a marriage. That it is far deeper and far more internal than external. And I am also a believer that if you believe in God, that my God anyway, doesn't see that certificate as any more important before you sign it versus after you sign it. It's the way you feel in your heart and the way you work at keeping your relationship vibrant and meaningful.
Okay, so then what's the most underrated skill in a strong marriage?
Well, communication for sure, and connection, but also that's about caring, about being a good listener, being present in a relationship and actually caring about what that person says when you ask them how their day was. Right? That it's not a meaningless, hey, honey, how's your day? And you keep going. But actually, tell me about your day. What happened today? And being present and caring.
Okay. So what's the biggest lie we tell ourselves about love and divorce?
Love and divorce? Well, I believe that really great people can be married and find that they're great apart, but didn't make a great marriage together. And that sometimes loving somebody is letting them go to find their true happiness somewhere that doesn't include each other.
Okay. I'm taking these in. I'm really. I hope you guys are too. Whoever's watching or listening.
Deep, right? This is so deep. I didn't know these questions before, so
okay.
This is like, I hope I'm.
That's why I like these on the fly. Is good because you just don't have time to prepare. Okay. How about a book or some resource that rewired how you think about family support? The book or resource.
There is the Gottman Institute. This is a married couple that have written extensively on what makes a successful marriage. And if I can leave your listeners, they actually had, I believe they set up an apartment where couples would come and live. And I don't know what the time period was, whether it was a week, a month, I'm not exactly sure, but there's cameras everywhere. And they found that there were 4 things, they call them the 4 horses of the apocalypse. That if you have 2 of these 4 things, I believe you have a 97% chance of being divorced in 2 years. Contempt, criticism, defensiveness, and what they call stonewalling, which is, I'm not talking about this, just walking away.
Right.
So if you have 2 of those things, like defensiveness as an example, which, you did this today. Well, I wouldn't have done it if you didn't.
Right.
Right. Criticism, contempt, those are so big. So if you could avoid those 4 horsemen, or maybe just have 1, not 2, because it's when you start, piling them on, that it gets really, really dangerous for marriage. So the Gottman Institute has been my go-to for anybody that wants to try and understand, more importantly, how they got there.
Got it. Okay. What's a first responder's superpower in relationships that nobody talks about?
So the guys that I work with are rescuers by nature. I love working with firefighters. They're just, at least the guys that I've worked with, they're genuinely good people. They're here to save as many as they can, including even themselves sometimes, finding their own meaning and purpose in this world. But I think their superpower is that they sacrifice themselves for others.
Yes. Yep. I was going to say it's about giving, I guess. That's what you're saying. Okay.
They're sacrificing, right?
Like sacrificing, yes.
Exactly.
Okay. Is there a tool or practice in your work that surprised even you?
For me, it's tap dancing. I got to tell you, if your people are thinking about becoming entrepreneurs and they haven't, you got to learn to tap dance, right? You got to learn to you got to go back and forth and and just, and being incredibly flexible. If entrepreneurship was a Gumby, remember that Gumby thing? Like beyond, you got to be like, for me, when I talk about how can we make this happen, we don't have a budget for it. Let me go I'll go find some grants. I'll get you a grant writer. How about we get a grant done? Or we go through the mental health budget, or last resort, we do bring HR into it. We bring the mayors into it, or the Congress people that say, let's help these people. So being flexible, being willing to turn on a dime is all of the things that you need as an entrepreneur.
Say that again. 20 years into it, I'm doing this.
Yes, indeed.
You've been at it much longer. Yes. Yeah. Okay. The future of family support is?
What I wish that became the norm and that there was not so much stigma in is asking for help early on. We have a stigma in this.
No. You're finishing the sentence that says the future of family support is.
What I want to say is that I wish that people would embrace marriage and family support systems that are even currently in existence, the therapies and these apps. I mean, there's a lot of things that are on these apps that you can use to help you through it. We've even got, a 24/7 AI app that you can talk to. It's $10 a month. It's called Suno Chat. And you feel like you're talking to an individual and it can give you some great feedback. Is it an absolute replacement for therapy? No, but if you can't afford therapy, it's a best. So I think that having access to things like that at your fingertips are really important. I just think that we need to get rid of the shame around asking for help. Say, things aren't going quite my way and I need some help in trying to figure this out.
Okay. So future family support, reach out for help. Okay, great.
Yeah. And these AI apps, I mean, you can find them. They're great. They're instant support.
Okay. Lastly, if your life's work were a book title, Vicky, what would it be?
Welcome to the shit show.
Oh my God, that's funny. That's good.
I'm sorry. Pardon my French, but well, it really has been, it has really been learning to tap dance, right? It really has been, and also just making lemonade out of lemons is really and truly what I've done.
That's right.
I have said to everybody that'll listen is that I've been through this. I've made the mistakes. I learned the system. Now let me walk you through. And when I say me, I now have a team of over 100 divorce coaches that are former family law attorneys, former financial advisors, and mental health counselors. I have surrounded myself with a team of experts that work with special needs children, religious divorces, cultural divorces like prearranged marriages and LGBTQ, high conflict, even spousal abuse. So when I say me, I mean, Divorce Right and now Bridgewell, that, I've surrounded myself with experts in this process so that nobody else has to, not that you don't have to think, because you have to think, but, putting together something like that involved a lot of tap dancing, a lot of Gumby flexibility, and a lot of, bombs going off. When I realized that I was going down the wrong road for the Walmarts and the Disneys, right? But that this is where my home now is and my purpose is, right?
Awesome.
I feel I'm very comfortable doing this dance now.
Okay, so is there something I should have asked you that I didn't?
I hope that in our conversation today, we have helped other people feel and understand that supporting your employees through this process is not just good for them, but it's good for your teams. It's good for the company. It's good for their business. And that ignoring it and pretending it's not your business is not only not the right thing to do, it's absolutely the wrong thing to do. And divorce very much is your business. If you care about productivity and employee happiness, and, something that we didn't talk about were some statistics behind this process. 10% of them quit.
Right. Wow.
Right. You got an employee base of, 1,000 people. You're going to have 30 people go through a divorce in your company every year. And 3 of them are going to quit. Because number one reason, they didn't feel supported at work.
Yep.
Leave that divorce at home. No, can't do that. Support them through it, get them the help they need, and they will be forever in your debt, and they will be very loyal employees.
That's why I say that, when we are coaching employees of companies, they're the same person at home and work. So don't think that, they have roles to play as a parent or spouse or what have you, but they're bringing work home and they're bringing home to work.
Right.
So
they're the same. Yeah, you're exactly right. Just because they walk through your front door does not mean that
that's right.
They don't have to answer emails, send evidence, call their financial advisor, put their house on the market, pick up their kids from school at a different time now.
Yes.
All of that falls apart. They need your help. They need your support, and they need guidance and direction.
We're all connected. That's why it's unity consciousness around us is what we need.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, on that note, Vicky, thank you again for being a guest on this podcast. And in the spirit of gratitude, I also always ask, was there something you discovered in this last 45 minutes to an hour?
Gosh, that you're a great interviewer, and that I probably had to tap dance a lot. And because I was asked some questions I hadn't really thought about before. So I'm grateful that I was really able to focus in on the fact that I'm really passionate about what I do. And that makes me just feel like you confirmed to me that I'm in my purpose. I'm in my place in this life.
Yes, you are. And I hope that whoever's still listening or watching, tap into that element of your power, your dignity, your whatever you have that's been gifted to you. And it's been put in there by design. So don't ignore it.
Thank you.
Take care. Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you, my friend, for tuning in to another episode of Bold Conscious Connections. If you really enjoyed this episode, give it a thumbs up, please, and subscribe for more inspiring stories and insights from top entrepreneurs and leaders. So that button is right below here. So join our vibrant community of individuals who are out there making a difference. Okay? Stay tuned for more amazing conversation that will inspire and empower you. And until next time, remember, live boldly and consciously, my friend.